backdoor. Now you can see the tool can be used to do many more things, like it creates a backdoor for Android and combining a backdoor with another file. But we're not going to be talking about that now. We're going to go over that later on in the course. But for now, we're interested into creating an undetectable backdoor. And the one I'm going to use is creating one with Panwinds, which actually uses PowerShell. So this is number 6 right here. So all I have to do is just enter 06 or 6. And that will take me to Panwinds, which gives me even more options to generate the backdoor. Now the backdoor generated with this uses PowerShell. And PowerShell is basically a framework made by Windows, which it kind of expands on to the basic DOS commands. So it basically gives you more shell commands that can be used to automate tasks and run things on Windows operating systems. PowerShell comes in pre-installed with all Windows machines after Windows 7. So you can guarantee that it's going to work on all Windows computers if they're running Windows 7 and up. I'm going to create a bot, which is an executable type, and that's going to use PowerShell to inject the backdoor and give us the reverse shell. The other options will still use PowerShell, but will create a slightly different backdoor. For example, you can see this one will attempt to embed the backdoor with a PDF, but it won't work against all systems. You'll see that this one will use C, this one will use Apache, this one will use C#, but for our one, we're just going to use a basic bat file with PowerShell, and it should be able to bypass antivirus programs. So I'm going to go with number 1, which uses a bat file with PowerShell. And the reason why I'm going with it, because I've actually already tested the others, and they get detected by at least 10 antivirus programs. So I'm going to go with number 1. And then you can see that the tool is really nice because it already tells us our local IP, our real IP, and our host name. Now we'll talk about the real IP and all of that later on. For now, all that we're interested in is our local IP. And when we were using vil, we had to run ifconfig to see what's our local IP. So remember, we had to split the screen and do ifconfig. And then we can see that our local IP is 10.20.14.213. But in here, it's actually given us that already, so we can just give it straight away. And we don't have to do set. So remember, with vil, we had to say set something equals something and all that. For now, we can just give it the IP straight away. So it's asking for the L host, which is my local IP, and that's 10.20.14.213. And then it's asking me for the port to be used for the reverse connection, and I'm going to set that to 8080. And then it's asking me, what do I want to call the file? And I'm just going to call it rev https 8080. And I'm going to put FR at the end for FATRAT, so we know that this was generated using the FATRAT. So I'm going to hit enter. And then it's going to ask me what type of payload do I want to use. So if you look at these, you'll see that they're actually kind of similar to the payloads in vil evasion, especially the last parts. So you can see that we have meterpreter payloads. And you can see that we have a reverse TCP and we have a reverse HTTP. And if we scroll down, we have the meterpreter reverse HTTPS, which is the same payload that we used with vil evasion. So again, essentially, we're generating the exact same payload, which is going to give us the exact same access to the computer. The only difference is the way that this payload is going to be delivered and executed on the target computer. So I'm going to click on OK. And again, just like vil evasion, the FATRAT will actually use Metasploit framework to generate the payload. And now it's telling me that the payload is saved to the output folder. And that's it. It's telling me, do I want to exit? And I'm going to say, yes, I'm done with you. Thank you. And that's it. We're out of the FATRAT. Now what I want to do is I want to just check and make sure that this backdoor is not detected by any antivirus programs. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to go on my browser. I'm going to upload a file. And the file is going to be stored in the output of the FATRAT. So as you remember, the FATRAT was stored in OPT. So I'm actually just clicking here on the pan in here, and then I'm going to give the full access to the full path where the backdoor is stored. And it's stored in the same location where we installed the FATRAT. So that was an OPT, the FATRAT, if you remember. And you can see that we have all the files of the FATRAT right here. Now, if we go to output, there should be a file called output. And that's it right here. And in it, we have our backdoor, which is called derive https 8080 of r.bat. I'm going to open this file and scan it. And as you can see, the scan is done. And it's only being detected by one antivirus program. So it's bypassing actually pretty much all the famous antivirus programs. It's bypassing McAfee, it's bypassing Kaspersky, it's bypassing AVG, it's bypassing Norton right here. It's pretty much bypassing everything. The only one that's detecting it is Icarus Security. So out of all the antivirus programs, we'll be able to bypass them all except for this particular antivirus program, which is a really, really good result. So I'm going to go back, and we're going to test the backdoor exactly the same way we tested our Veil backdoor. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to listen for incoming connections using MSF console. And we're going to use the multi-handler exactly the same way that we used it before. Keep in mind, it doesn't matter how we created the payload. Both of these payloads use a Meterpreter reverse HTTP connection. Therefore, when we want to listen for incoming connections, we're going to use the same module and the same payload. So I'm going to do this a bit quickly because we've done it and explained it before. So the first thing I'm going to do is use exploit multi-handler. Then I'm going to set the payload. And I have to set this exactly to the same payload that I created that I want to receive connections from. And we created a Meterpreter reverse HTTPS payload. So that's what we're going to do. To Windows, Meterpreter reverse HTTPS. And then we're going to set the L host to the IP address of my machine. Again, the same L host that we set when we created the backdoor. And we're going to set the L port to the port that we want to receive the connection from. And again, the same L port that we used when we created the backdoor. So it's 8080. And now all is done. I'm just going to do show options. And just to make sure everything is okay. And we can see that we're using a Windows Meterpreter reverse HTTPS. We have the right IP and we have the right port. So everything is perfect. Now, I'm actually just going to run one command before I run this exploit. I'm going to do save. And what this will do is it's going to save all this config automatically so that the next time I run MSF console, I'll have the multi-handler loaded already. And it'll have all these options pre-configured automatically, so I won't have to do it again. And now I'm just going to do exploit to run this module and wait for incoming connections on 8080. The last step to do now is to just run the backdoor on my Windows machine. And I'm going to deliver it using our very basic delivery method. And that's basically by placing our backdoor in our web server, and then we're going to download it from the Windows machine. So my backdoor is right here. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to click on the address bar again, put /, and then put var www HTML, and we created a directory called evo files that we stored our previous backdoor in, and I'm going to paste this backdoor in it. And that's it. We're good to go. So we're just going to download it from the Windows machine like we did in the previous video. And before I can download it, I need to start the Apache server, the web server in Kali, and we're going to do that using the command service Apache 2 start. So I'm going to go to my Windows machine. And I'm going to navigate to my website, which is 10.20.14.213, the same IP as the Kali IP. And we're going to go to the directory that contains the evil files, which is called evil files. And we can see our two backdoors. We see the one that we used before, and we have our new backdoor here, which is called drive https 8080fr. I'm going to click that, download it, and then I'm going to run it. And again, Windows is just telling me, be careful, this is an executable, so be careful when you run files like this. It's not telling me that it's a virus, and it's not telling me that it contains malware. So I'm going to run it anyway. And if we come back here, you'll see that we got an interpreter shell, and the connection came back again from the target computer, which is at 10.20.14.206, came back to us on port 8080. Now, like I said before, now I've basically hacked the Windows machine. I can do anything I want to do on it. So if I just do sysinfo to confirm, you can see we can get the information about that machine, and we can basically do anything that the target person can do on their computer.